Mr. Speaker, Governor, and distinguished guest, and of course my good and great friend Toni Atkins. I am honored today to have this opportunity to testify and provide some testimony with regards to the Toni Atkins that we all love. And unfortunately, most folks have said so much, there's very little left for me to say. But let me just simply say, first of all, that as a San Diegan, we are proud. It may have taken them over 150 years to get here to realize what is south of Los Angeles. But there is life there, and we have great leadership. They told me when I came here that this is the people's house. Consistently, we say this is the people's house. And I began to think about that as this day approached. What does it mean to have the people's house? Clearly, we are the larger body, which means we have the smaller constituency, which means our constituents have greater access to us. But it also means that there are more diverse ideas and more diverse opinions, and that the pulse of this state is found in this house, that this is the people's house, which means that the person who becomes speaker truly becomes the voice of the people. And as we began to ask ourselves, what do we face in the coming years ahead, and what voice will be there for us, it is often found in the selection of our speaker. We've had some challenges the last 3 or 4 years, some great challenges that have sometimes challenged our very essence of who we believe we are. Our values, our aspirations have been challenged in the years because of economic challenges. And we've had great leadership in meeting those challenges in Speaker Perez and Speaker Bass, making the hard decisions that are there. But as we come out of that, we now have an opportunity to really express the voice of the people of California. And what better voice do we have than that of Toni Atkins in this house? You see, when we face the challenges that we will face in this house, when we think about what lies ahead for us and for California, when we say to ourselves, we are going to fashion a healthcare system that will be a model for the rest of this nation as to how we care for everyone, who better to lead the charge than someone who truly knows what it is to live without health care, to be a child without preventive health care in their life? Who better to champion the cause without wavering about the necessity of health care in California? When we ask ourselves about poverty, all of us have given some commitment to poverty, that we say we are a state that has the greatest poverty of any state in the nation, that over a quarter of our children live in poverty. And we began to ask ourselves, what are we going to do about poverty? What greater champion that we have to talk about poverty than a child born in the mountains of Virginia, looking through the clapboard of a house without the resources that many of us take for granted, who understands poverty not only just because you are poor, but the devastating effect that it can have on your life if there's not adequate intervention. So we've got a champion for poverty in this house. I often am a champion for schools, K-12 and post-secondary. Who better a champion than a person who understands the power of education in her life? That it was the determining factor. It truly is the American equalizer. And so when we began to talk about improving our K-12, making our universities more accessible, who can be a greater champion than a woman who really understands just how pivotal that experience has been in her life? And so we have that champion. We've been faced with a number of issues in California concerning equal opportunity, access, justice, the treatment of others. We've seen it on our campuses and our campus climate communities. And we ask ourselves, how do we feel about it? Who knows best how to respond to hatred and the negative words and the power of words to hurt than our speaker, who's a member of the LGBT community, who understands how to protect others from hurt and harm, and who understands the precariousness of your life when people hate you. It is important that we look at the fact that we have a champion in this House who has all of the ingredients to not only give us the information, but the passion and the drive to accomplish those goals. We have so many issues that we'll be facing: women's rights, equal pay, all those things. Who better a champion than a woman who's been there and done that than Toni Atkins? Lastly, let me say that some of you mentioned we will confront many obstacles in this House. And our greatest challenge is going to be to reignite the spirit of California. The fact that so many people had such great hopes and aspiration in the state that were dashed because of the economic challenges that we've all faced in the last few years. I'm reminded that my speaker-elect, is a dreamer, because you have to have strong dreams when you come out of adverse circumstances. She understood very clearly that simply because she was poor and born in poverty, that poverty was not born in her. She understood that the current conditions of her life at that moment was not a determination of her future, and that she understood that simply because she was poor, like so many of us, that she'd have to run faster and jump higher to achieve her goals. But with adequate support and internal resources in her community as well as in herself, that she could do it. When we talk about dreams and reigniting the California dream, Toni understands what Langston Hughes has said so often in his speech when he says, hold fast to your dreams. He says, because when dreams die, life is like a broken-winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to your dreams, he says, because when dreams go, life is like a barren field covered with snow. So I'm optimistic as I think about my incoming speaker-elect, my friend Toni Atkins, that we will face many challenges in this House. And she has a resume that demonstrates her ability to respond to it, that we're getting great leadership that will help us to shape the future of California. You know, this past weekend, Dorothy, for the umpteenth time, skipped down the yellow brick road with her scraggly friends who needed a heart, who needed a brain, and who needed courage. The great thing for us as we skip through this golden state of California, that we have a leader who has a brain, who has courage, and who has passion and compassion for many. So I am excited about my incoming speaker, who's going to lead us to greatness, because all of us came to California because we wanted the greatness and the golden state of California. My parents did, yours did, your great-parents did, because we knew what California had the potential to give. We have a speaker who now understands it in her personal life and in her public life. And I'm looking forward to, in a few minutes, saying, Madam Speaker, I'm here to work with you. Thank you so very much for your dedication and commitment.
Mr. Gomez, I owe you an apology, and as my act of contrition, I now have to follow Dr. Weber. Members and guests, today marks the beginning of another auspicious chapter in the history of this chamber. For only the third time in our state's history, we will look to this rostrum with pride and be able to address Madam Speaker. For only the second time in the history of our nation, a lesbian